Hello, I'm Benjamin Fry, and in this video we're going to look at what to do when boundaries are not enough. We've talked in this series about dysregulated nervous systems, about people becoming overreactive and underreactive, and a kind of sweet spot in the middle that's like a Goldilocks nervous system. And we've looked at how all the unfinished business that gets accumulated in our nervous system, all our unfinished responses to earlier threats, create a kind of baggage that sits at the core of our experience. And this baggage gets impacted by life. So life comes in at it like little arrows. And when this causes a reaction in the baggage, we call these arrows triggers. So there's a kind of mathematical almost relationship between the trigger, the baggage, and the resulting reaction that comes out of it. We might have a trigger that's not that big a deal, maybe 3 out of 10, but because it hits something that's very unfinished in our system, we might have a 9 out of 10 reaction to it. Or even worse, we might have a 0 out of 10 reaction to it, which is when we can't even handle having a 9 out of 10 reaction to it, or a 10 out of 10. So this creates quite a lot of complexity in our behavior, in the way that we feel within ourselves and in the way that we treat other people, when we're trying to look at how our behavior fits in with both the people that we're around, but also the problems that we're trying to solve. So a Goldilocks nervous system will solve problems reasonably successfully, because they're providing just enough mobilization to deal with the scale of the problem that's coming at them. And these kind of people are also very collaborative. They get on with people. They get on in teams well. They help other people and themselves to mutually succeed in whatever problem they're trying to solve, because they got just enough coming out of them to help meet whatever somebody's asking them to do. As I'm sure you're aware, people who overreact greatly or are very shut down are much less good at solving problems and much less good at getting on with people to try and solve problems. So one of the things we want to try and do, given that we have a dysregulated nervous system and given that we're prone to overreacting and underreacting, is we want to try to act as if we had a perfect nervous system. We want to simulate being Goldilocks in our nervous system reactions. This means that when we have a trigger, first of all, one of the things we try and do is mobilize some boundaries to reduce the scale of that trigger, to give us the best chance of having a reaction that's the same size as the trigger, rather than one that's huge, or so huge it's shut down to nothing. Now, we can do our best with this, and many people do, and having boundaries, communicating boundaries, managing boundaries, these are all quite difficult things to do, and we can spend a whole lifetime really perfecting that. So then there comes a subsequent question really, which is, let's say I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned to monitor my nervous system. I've learned to watch my physiology. I've created some pretty good boundaries in my life. I've got people, places and things that are helping me to put that in place. And yet, even then, things get through the gap. So I find myself overreacting to something. I kind of know I'm overreacting because I begin to realize that when I have this internal feeling like it's a life or death threat, and I really want to scream or shout or run and flee, or I find myself thinking about the same problem over and over again in like 10-15-second loops that doesn't go anywhere, I know I'm triggered, right? I know that my physiology is out of scope, out of scale with the problem I'm being presented with. In those situations, if I can, I still have a choice about how I can behave. I have the chance to look at that from the point of view of the kind of information you're getting right here in this video and say, look, is this really about what's happening to me? Or is it really about what happens in me because of what happened to me over the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? And if you can capture a little bit of that latter perspective, then there's an opportunity to practice something which we call containment. Now, containment is very difficult to do because it really just means that when I notice I've got a lot of energy that I want to react to something with, I give out just enough of it that's appropriate for the trigger I was dealing with, and the rest of it I don't shut it down, but I kind of just hang on to it and I own it, if you like. I let it stay on my side of the fence, which is really uncomfortable. There's a reason why when we're upset we like to shout at people and call them jerks and blame them for stuff, because it actually is less painful than saying, I'm in pain, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm hurt. So containment is about shifting from spraying all of my distress over there and keeping the majority of it over here. So you have to notice, well, first of all, you have to want to do it. Then you have to notice when you need to do it. Then you need some tips for how to do it. And there's one very simple tip for how to do it that's, again, enormously difficult to do in practice, which is, if I can articulate my response to anything, my reaction to anything, my feelings about anything, without ever using the word you, then I have no opportunity to be abusive towards you or to overreact towards you. All I can do is talk about myself and how I'm experiencing myself. And this is enormously frustrating. So it would be very difficult to say, I'm feeling very angry, I'm feeling very hurt, I'm feeling very upset, I want to run away, I want to leave this job, I want to leave this relationship, whatever it might be, without saying, because you're a jerk. That's where we really want to go. But if we can do that, it means that in all the relationships we're in and all the interactions we're in, we can do something that's very valuable. We can allow that person a window into our experience of why we're having a difficult time without alienating them and pushing them away so they no longer want to be a witness to look through that window. So containment is like the boundaries in the mirror. If you want people out there to have an interest in your boundaries and to be able to say to them, look, for example, please don't raise your voice with me, I find it really triggering and really difficult, then there has to be a flip side to that, which is that I practice the discipline myself, that I won't raise my voice at you either. I won't use my distress as an excuse to be invasive or to be attacking or to be dismissive of you. And it becomes quite a skill to practice boundaries and containment. But the benefit of doing so is that you can begin to invest in a deeper relationship with yourself, a deeper knowing of your own nervous system, a deeper knowing of the architecture of what triggers you and therefore what your baggage is. And eventually we'll get to looking at how do we treat baggage, which is kind of the holy grail of the whole system. But in the meantime, we just want to change things a little bit. So we want to get slightly less triggered and we want to overwhelm others slightly less with our reaction. So containment is a key part of nervous system recovery. We do everything we can to not be overwhelmed and to not be overwhelming. And we get to the point where there's a lot going on inside and we just need an architecture for not flooding other people with that. And that one very simple tip, if you don't use the word you can't get it wrong. It's very hard to apply, but very valuable to have. And the only place you can really use the word you is where you're trying to explain to someone where the origin of the problem was. And so you could just say, when you and me spoke this morning. But again, it's important not to slide in insults there, like, when you were a total jerk this morning. Much better to just be clear and factual. Say, when we had this interaction, this is how I notice I'm feeling right now. So the cornerstone of containment is, as it sounds, to contain some of the energy that wants to come off us, because we know our physiology, that it's more than the situation merits. It has huge advantages because it shows us what we need to work on, and it also helps others to be more compassionate, more present, and more connected with us while we go through our daily life's dramas. So I recommend it to you. Ironically, that's the one word you should try and drop. Good luck. Thank you for listening. I'm Benjamin Fry, and these are ideas from my recent book, The Invisible Lion. If you'd like some help with these, putting these in practice, have a look at the resources, the 28-day recovery plan at the website, theinvisiblelion.com.